Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first story is titled, Am I the A-hole for selling my house since my roommates thought I was ripping them off? I have a massive mortgage on, a house in an HCOL city. I have 4 roommates. I have the basement suite and the upstairs biz rented to 1 couple and 2 single people. They know I own the house, and all of them were recommended to me by friends or family. I still required a lease agreement and security deposit as well as first and last month's rent. I just was willing to rent to them at below market rate because I didn't have to advertise or arrange for a property manager. Between the 4 of them, I collect enough to cover the mortgage and utilities with a little left over. I save my money and use it to pay for major repairs and maintenance. I'll be starting a new job in a different city in the new year. I knew about this back in late October. I offered the couple an opportunity to take over the basement suite in the new year for a little bit more money. They would get a massive bedroom upgrade and a private living room, bathroom, and kitchen. They agreed and let me know that they were planning on moving out in 1 year, so they would be willing to sign a 1-year lease. I asked the 2 singles if either of them wanted to take the master bedroom that would be empty. They both declined, but asked if they could turn it into a home office for them. I said, sure, but they would have to cover the rent for the room. They think I'm being unreasonable. Since I'll be making more money off the couple, they think I should keep their rent the same and let them have the room for free. I offered it to them for 80% of what I was getting before. They called me a selfish a-hole for taking all their money. Even if they took the deal, they would still be paying less than market value for a single room in our city. It turned into a huge fight with the people who referred them to me, calling me a greedy a-hole for trying to suck money out of their friends. I don't need to deal with any of this. I found a property investor who was willing to buy my house and honor my current leases, including the new one for the couple. Unfortunately for the other 2 renters, their leases are up in February, and I imagine that the rents will be going up a fair bit. But that isn't my problem anymore. So now everyone they know are angry with me because these 2 people will most likely have to move into a crappier living situation. I feel bad because if I wasn't moving, I would stay and deal with it. But it is just easier to walk away. Comment said, not the a-hole. Everyone wants something for free, and that they want you to allow them to use space that they refuse to pay for is ridiculous. It's their own fault that they got other people involved who made this untenable for you. Don't carry any feelings about it. Walk away with your profit and enjoy your new life. Another comment said, not the a-hole. You aren't required to give away rental space for free, and it is your business what you decide to do with your property. It isn't like you're a slumlord who just unilaterally and arbitrarily hiked their rent. You offered them more space for more money, and still below market. If they didn't want to pay more, they easily could have just said no. Instead, they chose to get entitled and call you names. Who does that to their landlord and expects there to be 0 consequences? They made it clear that managing this property from a distance would be a headache, so you made the reasonable decision to sell it. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to take my roommate's son for a few hours, and causing him to miss the birth of his baby? I, 22 years old, am in college. I live in a rental apartment with my roommate, Simon, 28 years old, and his 4-year-old son. The mother of the child is deceased, and he got together with his now ex-GF, but broke up 4 months ago. He was expecting a baby with her, and the baby was born this past Wednesday. I was in the middle of studying and preparing for my exam when Simon barged in telling me his ex-GF's mom just called him and said she was in labor, and he had to go to hospital. He started begging me to take his son for a few hours, till midnight, so he could be there for his baby's birth. I declined and said I had so little time left and needed to focus on studying. He begged, saying that I wouldn't even feel his son's presence, but the kid's so hyperactive and hard to deal with, basically. He started raising his voice at me, saying I was being mean for no reason, and he had no one else he knows that could take his son. I told him he could have prepared for this by hiring a babysitter. He started going off, saying that I was being unhelpful on purpose. I told him to get out of my room. He said he'd just leave the kid with me then. I told him I'd call the cops as soon as he does that, which made him back off. He was fuming. He took his son and left and came back the next day telling me that I just caused him to miss the birth of his baby and that he'll never forgive me for what I'd done. He's been avoiding me since it happened. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, not the a-hole. If he had asked you in advance or his babysitter dropped out or something, then that would be different. The fact he knew the baby would arrive at some point and didn't make any kind of arrangements makes him the a-hole for springing it on you. What would he have done if you weren't home? Was that his plan all along, to just drop the child on you? Crazy. Another comment said, do you consider him your friend? If you consider him a friend, you are 1000% the a-hole for not helping out in extremes like this. It's not a trip to the store or dentist. It's the birth of his child. He can't just do it later. Don't be surprised if this ruins y'all's friendship. Friends help. If you don't care about this dude and you only really know of him because you share the house, then no, you're not the a-hole, because you don't expect people you hardly know to watch your kid. The next story is titled, Neighbors Drove Her Over My Flowers, Blocked My Driveway, and Claimed He Owns My Property. I Got Revenge. Growing up in Malaysia, I was always taught to respect others and treat them the way I wanted to be treated. This is a value that I have held on to throughout my life, but there was one instance where my neighbor's behavior was so outrageous that it pushed me to my limits. It all started when my neighbor, who had a fancy car, would park it wherever he pleased. Sometimes he would even block my driveway, preventing me from accessing my own property. At first, I tried to reason with him, explaining that he was causing inconvenience, but he just laughed it off and said that his car was worth more than my life. As time went on, his behavior became increasingly frustrating. I would come home from work and find that he had parked his car in my driveway yet again, forcing me to park on the street. It was a huge inconvenience, but what made it worse was that he would park the car in such a way that it partially blocked the driveway and ran over my wife's flowers. My wife was a skilled gardener, and her flowers were her pride and joy. Seeing them destroyed was devastating for her, and I knew that I had to take action. I went to my neighbor and explained that he couldn't park in my driveway anymore and that he was damaging my property. But he refused to listen and continued to park there. One day I decided that enough was enough. I contacted the authorities and they came and towed his car away. It was the only way to make him realize that he couldn't keep blocking my driveway and destroying my wife's flowers. However, this was only the beginning of my problems with my neighbor. He was furious with me and started digging up my yard, claiming that it was on his property. He destroyed even more of my wife's flowers, and I knew that I had to take drastic action. I contacted a lawyer who helped me to find out that the land that my neighbor was claiming as his own was actually mine. I decided to teach him a lesson and had a fence built right where the property line was, and then dug up his driveway. In its place, I set up a beautiful new garden for my wife to enjoy. It was a peaceful space where she could relax and forget about all the stress that my neighbor had caused us. However, my neighbor was not happy about what I had done, and he continued to cause problems for me. He would often try to park his car in front of my house, blocking my driveway yet again. But I was not going to let him get away with it this time. I contacted the authorities again and had his car towed away. This time my neighbor was furious. He started yelling at me, telling me that he was going to take legal action against me. But I was not afraid. I knew that I had done nothing wrong, and I was willing to fight for what was rightfully mine. As the weeks went by, my neighbor became more and more aggressive. He would come over to my house and start yelling at me, even threatening me with physical violence. I was scared for my safety and the safety of my family, but I refused to back down. One day, while I was out of town for work, my neighbor broke into my house and vandalized it. He destroyed furniture, broke windows, and even set a fire in the living room. It was a terrifying experience, and I knew that I had to do something to protect myself and my family. I contacted the police, and they were able to apprehend my neighbor. He was charged with multiple counts of vandalism and sentenced to several years in prison. It was a relief to know that he was no longer a threat to me and my family. As an update, I have taken extra steps to ensure the safety of my property and my loved ones. I installed a security system with cameras and alarms to deter any potential intruders. It's a small price to pay for peace of mind, and I know that my family is now safer than ever before. I also took the opportunity to renovate my house and yard, making it even more beautiful than before. My wife and I have added new plants, flowers, and even a small pond. It's become a peaceful oasis for us, a sanctuary where we can forget about the troubles of the world and enjoy each other's company. As for my neighbor, he's still serving his sentence in prison, but I don't feel any sense of satisfaction or vindication. I'm just relieved that he can no longer cause any harm to me or my loved ones. I hope that he uses this time to reflect on his actions and realizes that respect and kindness are much more valuable than material possessions. Looking back, I realized that my experience with my neighbor taught me a valuable lesson. While I still believe in treating others with respect and kindness, I now know that there are times when you have to stand up for yourself and protect what's yours. It's not always easy, but it's necessary. I hope that my story serves as a reminder to others that you should never let anyone trample over your rights or your dignity. Whether it's a rude neighbor or a bully at work, you have the power to stand up for yourself and demand respect. It may be difficult, but it's always worth it in the end. The next story is titled, Am I the A-hole for suing my father for the damage done to my house by his dogs? My, F31, mom passed away last year. My dad, 56, married a woman, 37, with a son, 16, about 6 months later. I think that the age difference is a bit much, but she is nearly 40, so it's not like he's robbing the cradle. Whenever my parents went away, I would always watch their dogs. They weren't the dogs that I grew up with, but they are good puppies. My mom would always call and let me know well in advance that they were going away. I would make sure that either myself or my boyfriend would be around pretty quick after the pups got dropped off. They could behave themselves for a few hours and I would leave water out for them. I do not have any pets myself. My work can involve travel and my boyfriend works out of town for 2 weeks and then has 2 weeks off. Well, my dad and his new wife decided to go on a trip. But since it was never his responsibility, he didn't call. I was out of town, my boyfriend was working. My dad has a key to my house for emergencies and dropping off the dogs. My neighbor called me a day later about the dogs howling in my house to see if everything was okay. I called my dad and he told me that he didn't know I was out of town. I said that if he didn't come get them, I was calling animal control. So he had his new stepson come to my house to get the dogs. I have no idea why a 16-year-old kid who was trusted to stay home by himself could not just have watched the dogs in the first place. When I got home, I found a disaster area. Dog crap and piss everywhere. I don't want to describe everything because it makes me angry. To get everything that could be cleaned done and to replace my boyfriend's leather recliner, which was old but also destroyed, cost about $7,000. I told my dad I expected him to pay for everything. He said that he would see if his homeowner's insurance would cover it. They will, but the deductible is a lot, and his premiums will go up. So he said that he would take care of it. It's been a few months, and I'm sick of waiting. The limit for small claims court in my state is more than double what I want, so I'm suing him. He was served and called me to complain. He doesn't have the money because he just bought a new car. He bought the car after my house got destroyed. I feel no pity. But his wife and him keep trying to talk me out of pursuing this. They said that my dad paid for a good chunk of my student debt and that I owe him. Him and my mom did pay off about $10,000 of my student debt, and I was grateful. It's one of the reasons I had no problem dog sitting for free. But he says that if I take this money, then he'll not have any money for things at his house. He isn't retired, and my mom had life insurance. Comment said, not the a-hole, and it's vital to hold firm and not let them sway you here. He had months to pay you back and instead bought a car? His negligence resulted in damage to your property. He should absolutely be paying for everything, and his financial irresponsibility is not your problem. Another comment said, not the a-hole. He entered your home without your permission and left his dogs unattended. You gave him an opportunity to pay for the damages and waited months for him to do it. It's only normal that you took the next step and sued. He bought a new car, so he clearly has other priorities than paying you back. In my opinion, paying you back will never be his priority. Keep suing. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving my boyfriend behind and going on the trip with our friends? I've been with my boyfriend, I'll call him Paul, for 3 years and living together for 6 months. Paul has serious problems with forgetting important documents, and after the 4th time he did this, I became responsible for carrying our documents in my purse. According to him, all documents have a digital version, and that is enough. Not all are digital passports, and not all places accept the digital form, but he is stubborn and maintains this position. I don't mind being responsible for the documents, and most of the time I have them in my purse. That is, until one day, 2 months ago, he called me asking about his identity, because he needed it for something and they didn't accept the digital version. I was at work and I informed him that I had it with me. He gave me a huge scolding saying that their documents should be at home and told me to stop holding his documents. I handed his documents over to him and said that I would no longer be responsible for this or warn him about it because I was doing a favor for someone I love who is a capable adult, 27. For the situation, we and our friends decided to travel to another country on New Year's from the 27th of December to the 3rd of January, and a passport is needed as it is on another continent. We would go to the capital where we would stay at our friend's house until our flight time. Our city is 2 hours away. We decided to go to the airport 4 hours before, visit the VIP room, and I went to check all my documents first. Paul was on my side, and when he saw only one passport, he asked about his, and I just said, "You have it." He panicked, saying he thought I had taken even more passports as usual and left it at home. He decided to run home and come back. He asked me to go with him, but I didn't want to spend 4 hours in the car. He went to get his passport, but complained that this was something to remember him by, and I went with my friends to the airport. In short, he didn't arrive on time, and I decided I wouldn't miss my trip because of him. I turned off my cell phone and made my 12-hour trip. When I arrived, several messages from him saying that he couldn't believe that I had gone on a trip without him, and that I had done it as forms of revenge because of his scolding. The flights are all booked up or too expensive, so he probably won't come. He's still accusing me of leaving him behind after purposely not remembering something I know he struggles with. My friends are on my side, but I feel doubtful. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, so he idioted you out for holding on to his documents after asking you to do just that. Now he's idioting because you followed his wish, but afterwards did not baby him and remind him of his passport. He needs a mommy, not a girlfriend. Maybe your solo vacation is enough of a wake-up call for him. Good on you for sticking to your guns. Not the a-hole. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying that my husband's reaction to a miscarriage is excessive? My husband, 27M, had a longtime friend who we'll call Bill, 31M. The two of them met when my husband was 16, and from the way they always tell the story, they've been inseparable ever since. Bill is now married and lives nearby with his wife. They announced their pregnancy a while ago, and my husband was absolutely overjoyed for them. He would visit as often as he could, and it seemed like he was single-handedly funding the baby's wardrobe and nursery, honestly. Unfortunately, they suffered a miscarriage just before the 6-month mark. Bill and his wife were understandably devastated, and so was my husband. I got it. He was watching his best friend go through something unimaginably painful. He was often gone for long periods of time comforting Bill because not only had he suffered this loss, but his marriage also didn't seem to be holding up very well either. The miscarriage occurred at the end of September. Now, this is where I might be a huge asshole, so I'm in desperate need of judgment. I completely empathize with Bill and his wife still needing time to recover, but my husband is also still acting as if this is fresh. Not just in the way he's still comforting his friend during his free time or excusing himself to take hours-long phone calls, but the intensity of his emotions. I caught him crying about a week ago, and when I asked him what about, he got angry with me and said it should be obvious. I was surprised to be met with such malice over a simple question, so I tried to gently suggest that maybe therapy would be beneficial. He was feeling this loss like it was his own, and I didn't find that very healthy. In fact, I had been concerned about him since mid-October, if I was honest, but had no idea how to broach the subject. The conversation that followed didn't go well, and my husband said his emotions were perfectly normal and that maybe I was just lacking in empathy. He's been avoiding me since. Am I the a-hole? Comment said, reading the title, I was prepared to say that you are the a-hole, but having read the whole post, I agree with you. Your husband is acting like he actually lost a baby. Being empathetic is one thing, but this does seem a bit over the top. Either there's more to this story, and I hope there isn't, or he does need to speak to a therapist to work out why he is so enmeshed with his friend. Not the a-hole. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.